Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Kevin Hogan, Rock Island Auction Company. Top 10 December 2022 premiere sale. Always look forward to doing these videos. It's so much fun. It is also challenging, but let's get into it. Kevin Hogan's top 10 for our December 2022. On my right, and these two guns are extremely different. We'll make some correlations, and it'll make sense hopefully at the end of it here. But number 10 on my list, we have a Colt, we have a Luger. Let's start with the Luger cartridge counter. 50 produced, ordered by the U.S. Ordnance Department. They're called the cartridge counter for the cartridge counting device, also known as the POW indicating device on the left-hand side. One of 50. And that's why I put it on my list, is for rarity, for condition. You have the Ordnance Department exploring, hey, the 38 caliber is not quite as strong. Let's try the 9mm. Which would eventually lead to the adaptation of the 45 ACP almost a decade later with the implementation of the Colt 1911 pistol. But tested by the U.S. Ordnance Department, they're extremely rare. They check that box for U.S. military collectors. We've sold like 7 or 8 of them over our 30 plus years in business. So they're extremely tough. And this is a damn good example of a DWM cartridge counter. We set the world record a few years ago, 120,000 for one. But this one's very good, very rare. And anytime you have something like that, it deserves to make the top 10. On my left, from the Luger to the percussion Colt. Bear with me, we'll put them together. 1851 Navies are in 36 caliber. One of the most popular American percussion Colts, particularly during the American Civil War. They manufactured over 215,000 1851 Navies. This is one of 4, and it happens to be serial number 1 for a pre-production prototype. This is a 40 caliber Colt 1851 Navy. Again, not a 36 caliber. It's got some interesting features. One is the finish. It's a super high polish finish. Reference the Bob Brotherton collection that we sold several years back. He had some prototype stuff that was out of this world. This gun was originally part of the Colt Factory Museum collection, which went on to the Connecticut State Library, which was sold off when Larry Wilson did his dance with the Connecticut State Library. It went to a collector, Fred Roth. It then went to Johnny Bassett, Bob Berryman, Norm Flaterman, and then on to Mr. Jim Sapika. So this is out of the Sapika collection. And oh, by the way, did I mention it's serial number 1? Now, in this sale, we have about 20 to 30 serial number 1 guns of every make and manufacturer that you could think of, and this is one of the core collections of the Sapika collection. But this gun is special. This gun is unique. It's an NRA Silver Medal winner in 1995. It checks all those boxes: condition, historical significance, of course, rarity, and the pedigree. It's well photographed, I believe, in the book of Colt Firearms, so it just goes on and on and on and on as a legend. But again, from the 38 caliber to the 9mm to the 45 ACP, and then from the 36 cal, hey, we want to do something better. We want to more punching power, more hitting power, more stopping power. Let's try the 36 to a 40 caliber, and that's what we have here. One of 4, the only one known in private hands, 40 caliber Colt 1851 Navy, both number 10 on my list. Number 9 on our list, Burgess shotgun. And not just any Burgess shotgun, but the finest Burgess shotgun in existence. No question about it. Now, there's not a lot of great information on Andrew Burgess and his shotguns. I would say most notably, you'll remember the folding shotguns with the hip holsters that folded in half. Very cool. This is not one of those, but this is a deluxe model Burgess shotgun. And this is what I call like a pound-for-pound gun. What does that mean? It means it punches way above its weight class. This thing is exceptional in all capital letters. And like the less I talk, the less is more here, because the engraving is absolutely exquisite on this gun. I read the description on it, and I would have to disagree with our catalogers. They attribute it to an Ulrich, and this is Enoch II, who cut for Savage. I would guarantee it. Reference the Monarch Grade 1899 that we sold several years ago for over $500,000. That's who cut this gun. But it's exquisite in execution, and it's exquisite in condition. And I didn't notice this, but I'm sitting here looking at it now. There's 2 silver bands here at the rear of the barrel, just like you'd associate with a Winchester 1-1000. And but again, like, photos do this thing more justice than I could ever do out of my mouth. It is absolutely exquisite. It's a 98% gun overall, and it's a pound for pound gun too. What does that mean? outside of it, punches way above its weight class. You can't. This gun will never sell for enough money, in my opinion. The spiel, the shtick. I think antique collectible firearms, fine firearms, are completely underrated, and this gun is that. You can own. This is a best of. It's a best in class. You want the best engraved Burgess, this is your shot. And if it was a Colt or Winchester, how many zeros are on the end of it? So it's not that, but it is as good as it gets. Number 9 on our list, the Enoch 2 factory engraved Burgess shotgun. Number 8 on the list, I'm an engraving junkie. I think that's been demonstrated throughout these various top 10s, and this is like mainline into the system here, looking at these guns. So we'll just start at the back. We'll try to make this as quick as we can. Rudolph Kornbrath, the greatest 20th century American engraver. I don't know how you could disagree with that. And here is one of his absolute masterpieces in an 1885 high wall. It's a custom rifle by Oberleis. So he was the custom gunsmith that tuned the rifle. He also carved the stock, a master in his own right. This is a 22. So, and it's not the only 22 on my list. So we'll talk about some more 22s if you can believe it. But a 22 squirrel rifle by Kornbrath, and this was one of his masterpieces. He used it in a lot of his promotional work. So I don't know what we do know or don't know about Kornbrath. An Austrian engraver, started in 1904, immigrates to the United States in approximately 1910, and cuts from 1910 to 1937. Kind of a relatively short career, especially when you look at the likes of someone like Helfrich. But an absolute master, and again, I find him to be the greatest engraver ever, probably. But relief, and images speak louder than words. When I say he's a master, that's what we have here. It's a high wall. It's signed in relief on the bottom, silver inlaid on the barrel again, just like we talked about on the Burgess and the 1/1000s. Certainly the finest engraved high wall that you're going to find. And again, I'm smitten with Rudolph Kornbrath, and it's easy to see why. So we'll jump in front to this 03 action. It's a gun by Griffin and Howe. And so Kornbrath did a lot of independent consulting. He worked a lot with Griffin and Howe, Abercrombie and Fitch. But he did a ton of bolt guns. And so here again, we have an 03 by Griffin and Howe. This gun is unsigned. So I look at that gun like 2 seconds. I'm like, Rudolph Kornbrath, but it might be his protege, which was Joseph Fugger, another Austrian engraver. So he immigrates and starts cutting in the U.S. in approximately 1927. So he gets apprenticed by Kornbrath for the last 10 years of his career. And their styles, their execution, he is absolutely great in every respect of the word as well. But it's a beautiful 03. I think it's the best Griffin and Howe gun in the sale. We did do a video on those. Check it out. For a price point gun, you want to own something great for under 10 grand, take a look at this thing. It's unbelievable. And then right behind it, let's say it's Fugger. Who was Fugger's protege? Winston Churchill, the master engraver on this Borchardt. And so here you have this skill and this trade being passed on by men of extreme talent, and you can see it through the generations. And so Kornbrath trains Fugger trains Churchill, and an American board engraver, and you'll see him even on some best quality English guns Churchill cut. We've sold some, but talent again in every sense of the word, and that's what we have here. So just some incredible engraved 19th century American firearms and 20th century American firearms. Number 8 on our list. Number 7 on our list, hearts and minds, people, the Winchester 1894. As American as apple pie and baseball, they made 5 million Winchester 1894s and 94s, getting into later iterations. But again, just truly an iconic gun, the quintessential lever gun. So here we have 3 great guns, different, and Winchester collecting is all about variation. So we're collecting rarity and condition, rarity and variation, and that's what we have here. This is quite a unique opportunity. Starting up front, I'll work my way back. This is a 4-digit gun, serial number 4513. And It's the first model, what we call a true first model, which has the 10 o'clock screw. So I'm not going to pick it up. I'm just going to point, and we can zoom in on it or get a still of it. But you look at the loading gate and you see that screw that would be at the 10 o'clock position. So they call that the 10 o'clock screw. That's what we define as a first model, essentially from serial number 1 to 6,000. You'll see it pretty infrequently, so it's rare. It's also antique. It's a second-year production gun, 1895. It's a takedown, and for condition on a first model, good luck. This is as good as we've ever sold. It's out of the Wayne Connor collection. So a first model, 1894, antique with a 10 o'clock screw. Okay, now taking a step back, condition. That's what we have here. So this is 1904. So 1895, 1904. Again, it's a takedown, full mag, express sights, but condition. It's in 32 WS. What we look for on some of these earlier guns is the top of the bolt. We'll probably have to steal a photo of that too, but a real high niter blue on the top of the bolt. This gun just screams condition, again, from 1904. So from 1904 to 1905. Again, I'm using my eyeballs here. So this is a super high option 94. It also just screams condition. This is why I wanted to end with this gun. Okay, so it is a 1894, again, also a takedown, half magazine, double set triggers, deluxe stock, extra lightweight, matte barrel. And so what does that mean? I don't know if we can pick this up right, but these extra light weights, they have what we call a rapid taper barrel or a pencil barrel, as it starts fat and ends real skinny. Again, it's also matted. It's a deluxe double set triggers. It letters to an absolute T, and I promise you, you will not find a better example. Number 7 on my list, just 3 absolutely magnificent, absolutely different, absolutely important, great pieces of American history, the Winchester 1894. Number 6 on our list, I told you we were going to talk about some 22s again. Let's get into them. Up front, Marlin Model 20. Factory engraved, factory gold inlaid, factory platinum inlaid, carved wood. This gun was presented to the son of the owner and founder of Marlin, John Marlin, his son Malin Marlin. This gun had a list price of $55 at the turn of the century. On the ledgers, and you can immediately see why, because it's so elegant, it's so well done. Quite frankly, it's so cool. I think a 22 at this level, not only a novelty, but it's just special, totally special. This is really as good as it gets, and the documentation as well. This is well photographed and published in Brophy's book. And oh, by the way, it comes to Rock Island Auction Company courtesy of the Tom Selleck collection. And I can't stress enough that while Tom Selleck needs no introduction to many as a fine and historic arms collector, he is as up there as it gets. Extreme passion and an extreme eye, and has a phenomenal collection of fine and historic firearms. So from the Marlin Model 20, we'll go to the Winchester 1890 exhibition full silver plate. So full silver plate. This gun was in Brophy's book. This gun's in Ned Schwing's book, the definitive source and the definitive work on the 1890. It's John Ulrich engraved. It's John Ulrich signed. Configuration. Swiss butt, full silver trim. John Ulrich signed, factory engraved. Globe front sight. Find another one. So 2 incredible 20th century 22s by 2 of the great engravers, John Ulrich and his brother, likely Conrad Frederick. Number 6 on the list. Number 5 on the list, Colt single actions. First generation. I sort of bring this up every time. We can quantify, we can qualify. 357,859 first generation single actions. As they say, they don't make any more of them. Not first gens. 1 of 44. So here is 1 of 44. And we actually talked about one last auction. This is a 45 ACP. They only produced 44 of them. Broken record. This is a 7.5-inch gun, and it came formerly out of the George Lewis collection, an icon of Colt collecting, George Lewis. But again, 7.5-inch blue case hardened, 45 ACP, and it has the original box. You see special, auto, 7.5-inch. Here it is. This has some pretty interesting history. It starts off with a naval commander who purchased the gun in 1933, and he states it plainly. The reason I bought it in 45 ACP is because the ammunition was readily available and I could shoot it, and it was free. I don't know how much shooting was done. Not much. I mean, the gun is essentially mint. We don't use the word, but it's about there. And that's why these guns are incredibly scarce. But condition. So the last gun, we set a world record with it, 5.5-inch. This is 7.5-inch. Again, blue case hardened with the original box and some pretty cool military history. And both these guns are readjustment guns. So let's go to my right here. And they're readjustment guns because you have to readjust your benchmark. You have to reset your benchmark for condition because they are that good. And that's what we have in this 4 3/4 nickel factory pearl with the original box. Again, I stress it, we do not use the word mint, but I don't know what else word applies here because they are this good. And these carved steerhead pearls are just out of this world. It's an incredibly handsome gun, just two super rare first-generation single actions that represent so many more. We have, out of the Wilkerson collection, we have a 3-inch Sheriff's model black powder. We got factory engraved Texas ship stuff, so I could only pick two. Well, I'm supposed to pick one, but I picked two. Number 5 on my list, first-generation Colt single actions. Number 4 on the list, let's talk about some special carbines. In Alaska, now they call them brush guns. In Texas, y'all call them truck guns now. But there's something I think most gun guys are drawn to when we look at a carbine, just an overall coolness factor. And we got some special ones here. Let's start with the Winchester 1873 at the back. First model, Winchester 1873 saddle ring carbine. This happens to be the 4th Winchester 1873 saddle ring carbine produced, and it is the earliest example known. It's serial number 47. The earliest, the ledger states, I think, referencing Gordon's book, like number 5 and then number 31 and 34. This is the 4th one produced. It's serial number 47, and again, it's the earliest example of a Winchester 1873 saddle ring carbine known. And on the first model carbines, the one thing to look for, of course, is the raised thumbprint dust cover. We recognize 3 models. We look at 73s, first model, second model, third model. We have the raised thumbprint dust cover. Then we go to the not so raised thumbprint dust cover. Then we go all the way to the integration rail of the dust cover going to the third models. And other early features, of course, the front sight is integrated into the barrel band. And most importantly, serial number is hand engraved. So they say model 1873 hand engraved, and the serial number 47 is actually hand engraved itself. This gun also has condition for what it is. Look at the case hardening, lots of blue. There's a lot going for it. We sold the earliest factory engraved Winchester 1873 serial number 834. I believe it was 834. I'd put a bet on it. Serial number 834. So here's the first saddle ring carbine. 1873, the gun that won the West. Really cool, really neat. That's the depth, that's the breadth of this auction. Right in front of it, Winchester 1876 saddle ring carbine. Always rare, always desirable. Not a lot of great information on production. I spent some time trying to pin it down. How many 76 carbines were there? I just want a number. Give me a number. Can't find anything, but they're tough. They're really tough. This is probably the best in existence, at least for a nickel gun. So any 76 carbines rare and important. This gun we sold a few years ago out of the Robert M. Lee collection, and it now comes back to us. And this is one of those guns that stands the test. And it stands the test of your memory. Because is it as good as you remember? Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. No, this one stands up to that test in full. And you look at the wood, it's almost like it's a blonde, almost a blonde maple. But I think we tried to pull the letter on it. It's a serial numbered gun. It's just a serial number applied gun. So extremely deluxe wood, nickel trim, butt plate, frame, and outside of that, it's just a specimen of condition. Again, it's one of those readjustment guns. Readjust your bar for what you think is good or what you think is great. This gun's elite. And it's one of those opportunities that, hey, you see this gun sell 4 years ago, you never think you're going to see it again. So it's a rare opportunity to get a second chance at something, again, that's elite. From Winchester to Colt, 1877 saddle ring carbine, shipped in the soft to Hartley and Graham. It is gold, it is silver, it is wonderful. It's also a baby carbine, and the biggest telltale to identify the baby carbines are, of course, to look at the mag tube. The mag tube is actually slightly bigger than the barrel itself, so if you want like an immediate identification, that's the place to look. But this ships soft, again, to Hartley and Graham. It is classic LD Nimsky engraved, full silver on the barrel, silver on the bolt, gold on the frame, gold on the butt plate, select deluxe wood. This gun's featured in the Colt Book of Engraving. It's been in a number of great collections. Number 4 on my list, just 3 extraordinary carbines. Number 3 on the list, getting to the heart of it, you're going to see Colt, Smith & Wesson, Winchester again and again. It's hard not to, especially when you have a piece like this. For Rock Island Auction Company, this is the finest example of a Colt 1877 Colt Lightning that we've ever had the privilege to catalog, market, and sell. And it ranks right up there. I mean, you scroll through the Colt Book of Engraving, the old version, the new version, you see some world beater guns. But for a blue case-hardened 5-inch Kuno Helfrich engraved, it's hard to say it's the best. It gets no better than this. And this is one of those guns that, like, it came totally out of the woodwork. It's undocumented, unpublished as we know it, and came in as a photo appraisal, and then you see it in the flesh, and your eyes get big, and it's the one that gives you chills. This stuff is still out there in this condition, in this importance, and really it's a tale of condition, and that's what we have here. The cool thing about Helfrich is, you know, he engraved for 50 years. He cut for Colt for 50 years, from 1871 to 1921, and right at the dawn of the self-contained metallic cartridge, the transition from percussion to cartridge guns with the 71 open top, eventually the 1873 single action. So you actually see him on some percussion stuff. So he cut for 50 years. So the variety in the models that Helfrich worked on is tremendous. And this is what we consider a deluxe engraved gun. So, you know, a classic Helfrich splash here on the recoil shield, but just rolling it, top of the frame, into the barrel, deluxe coverage. And you have to understand that the engravers had shops, they had apprentices. And when you see something that was done by the master himself, it's instantaneously obvious. And that's what we have here in this Lightning. So this was a one-gun shipment to New York to Colt's exporter. And this gun, I believe, was discovered in Europe. And the family had some ties to Winchester, Virginia, but we have a letter going back to the 60s out of Zurich talking about the family history and that this gun had been in the family for 50 years back at the time. So, again, it's a cool little history, but the freshness of this gun and its overall purely spectacular. It is that elite level for condition, for rarity, and it's also that opportunity for collectors to put their own stamp on it, that it's part of your collection as opposed to assigning a lineage. They're both great, and we talk about it every time, but this is one of those fresh to the market, totally elite, best of the best. Number 3 on my list, Colt 1877 Factory Engraved Lightning by Kuno Helfrich. Number 2, Winchester 1866, but not just any Winchester 1866. We talked about it in number 3's video on the Lightning. This gun is fresh as a newborn baby. Also discovered in Europe. Came in on a photo appraisal. Same eye pop. Hair stands up on the back of your neck. Wow. And it's having that separation of, oh my gosh, this thing's thousands of miles away, time zones away, language barrier away. How do we do this? So a big shout out to our acquisitions team and the consignor, but totally fresh Winchester 1866 factory engraved. Now, what sets this gun apart, what makes it so special, and should be number one on any list, it can't be, and we'll know why, but it's Gustav Young factory engraved. And we've had the unique privilege and opportunity to bring several of these Gustav Young engraved Winchesters to the market. And why it's so important, so Gustav Young, widely considered the finest, best 19th century American engraver. When I say American, he cut American guns. We typically associate him with his time at Colt, and of course Smith & Wesson. But from 1863 to 1869, he did a lot of contract work, and he was more or less a free agent. And it's at this time that we see some of his work on Winchester Repeating Arms products. And that's what we have here in this Winchester 1866. It's a 25,000 range gun. We have to look at several other Winchesters, predominantly 1866s. With that, we sold a gun, 36,200 is the serial number, Winchester 1866. We discovered that gun in Virginia. It came out of a trailer. Full silver frame, you might remember it. Full silver frame presented to Ira Payne, shotgun butt, but it was full silver. It had a calendar going down the tang, logging the engraver's hours. It was hand engraved on the barrel, again, pre-1000, and the barrel address was cut by hand. That thing was out of this world. One of the coolest guns that we've ever sold. It might be the coolest gun that we've ever sold. And now we have this gun. This is a 25,000 range gun. There's a very famous 26,000 range gun, very, very close to this. Gustav Young. Wilson calls it his masterpiece on a Winchester. Gilt frame, same program. We also sold 130,000 range 1866. That was at the Centennial, no doubt about it. So when we get into this rarefied air of the finest 19th century American engraver applying his craft and his skill to a blue chip, a Winchester, you start to be able to count it on one hand, the opportunity, let alone the known quantity that are out there. And so, what we have here, it's a gilt frame, panel scene on both sides, and the giveaway for Young is the embedded animal heads. And you'll see it predominantly on Colts, and we can probably cut and show you some Colts. We're talking 51 Navy's 49 pockets with his animal head scroll. We had the Tears of Gettysburg gun over 15 years ago that I think it had 14 individual animals on it. I believe there's 4 or 5 on this gun, but a panel scene on the right side, panel scene on the left side. I'm going to flip it around here on the camera so you can see the other panel scene. And then this Swiss crest. So as I said, this gun was discovered in Europe. And while we talk a lot about Colts and Colts' ability to secure lucrative contracts by bribing officials or enticing contracts by presentation gifts, we have the Swiss government purchasing, I think it was 15,000 Winchester 1866s, roughly at the same time, 1868, 1869. So there's not a ton of great information out there, and Winchester made a lot of their money on ammunition early, but they did have a massive contract with the Swiss government for an 1866. And so it's hard to say that this gun wasn't either given to help solicit that contract or to commemorate the contract. Rare features, again, engraved on the barrel. So this is pre-1000. And again, I think the only one was that 36,200 range that we know of that was engraved on the barrel. Of course, we had the 3 Graces 1866 that would be sold later on. I can't remember the range on that gun specifically. It was engraved on the barrel, but this is so early. And then condition. Gilt frame, it's a hard gun to photograph because there's a lot of original gilt on the frame, on the butt plate. Where it's shining through, it confuses the lens, it confuses the light. This is an ultra high condition gun, a best of the best, engraved by Gustav Young. This stuff is still out there. It's the best part of our job. So we're excited about this gun. What an opportunity, what a responsibility it is to bring something like this to market. Number 2 on our list, the Gustav Young Factory Exhibition Presentation Winchester 1866 rifle. Number 1 on our list, our 26th president, Lieutenant Colonel Theodore Roosevelt's factory engraved new model number 3 Smith & Wesson. Walk softly and carry a big stick, you will go far. For just sheer cool factor, I don't know what's better. I don't know what's better that we sold. We were privileged to handle his hunting knife, presented to him on his last day in office in 1909. We had the Bull Moose single action that was presented to him on his 54th birthday 2 years ago that brought $1.5 million at auction. However, this is the gun that he ordered to take to war. Chambered in .38 long Colt, the standard military cartridge at the time, factory engraved by either Gustav Young or his son Oscar, shipped to Lieutenant Colonel Roosevelt right out of the factory records, I believe 1 or 2 days before they leave for San Juan, shipped to San Antonio before they leave for San Juan. It arrived the same day that the bombardment of San Juan happened. It gives you goosebumps. And .38 military or .38 long Colt, which was, again, the standard cartridge of the military at the time. There's like a handful of these new model number 3s chambered in this cartridge. So just like that .45 ACP, if you were going to war, what caliber would you want your sidearm to be in? This gun is extremely well known. I grew up reading Neil and Jinx. I love Smith & Wessons. This is like the most iconic Smith & Wesson. It's the most important Roosevelt gun that's in private circulation without a doubt. It's out of the Jim Sapika collection. We did a fabulous video on this. It's senseless for me to get into the history on this gun. We did a fabulous video. I think it's the best video that we've ever done. Please watch it. But number 1 on our list, by a mile, Colonel Theodore Roosevelt's Smith & Wesson new model number 3.